Hello and welcome back to Empowered the Podcast. I'm your host, Linda Brand. If you're a new listener, welcome, welcome. So happy you're here. Today, I'm super excited for today's guest. She is a seven-figure entrepreneur, leader, and creator of the pioneering energetics of Euphoria modality. Makhosi, the Royal Shaman, draws African mystic wisdom and modern high-performance strategies to guide her clients to define freedom on their own terms, to create abundance and sustainable wealth featured in major outlets like CNBC, the New York Times. Makhosi empowers driven, action-oriented leaders to rewrite society's outdated definitions of success and be empowered creators of their lives. With her results-focused approach, Makhosi moves clients beyond basic manifestation practices into purposeful, aligned action to create more flow in life and business. Makhosi is dedicated to serving ambitious visionaries who are ready to step into their full potential and manifest their boldest visions of wealth and legacy into reality. Oh my goodness, I am so excited for this conversation. I was telling you before I hit record that I've been binge watching your YouTube and your podcast, and it's speaking to me. Thank you for being here. How are you today?
We're getting ready for a major storm. So aside from
Oh,
that, just getting all the prep underway, but I'm actually having a great day despite all that.
that's amazing. Where in Florida? Are you in Florida?
I am in Florida, so I'm in the St. Pete, Tampa
Oh
area.
my gosh, we're
Let's get
neighbors,
it.
girl. Oh my God.
Oh, well, nice.
Yes, I'm down here in Bradenton, Lakewood Ranch, and I was like, I literally emailed you. You probably your admin maybe received it, and I said, I don't know if I'm gonna have power or Wi-Fi, but I'm just letting you know. Oh my goodness, we're nearby. I
Yeah,
love you
we're probably like
already.
20 minutes away.
Oh my gosh, so great. How long have you been down in Florida?
Just for the last 2 years.
Really, 2.5 years. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're part of that migration that moved here
Yes.
after the whole pandemonium.
Where did you move from?
We were living in Northern Virginia, DC area. We lived there for a few years, but I'm originally from West Virginia. My husband's from DC.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. How about you?
Michigan, my whole life.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
This is very different than
Yeah,
Michigan.
very different and beautiful. But this hurricane stuff had me thinking last night. Like, I don't
Like,
know if this is, I mean, the perfect scenario is being a snowbird and being able to come for the cold and
yeah,
getting out of here during this time. But anyway, prayers for both of us and for all of Florida, right?
yeah, yeah.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about the Royal Shaman and where all that began for you. I would love to hear. And then we'll dive into some other powerful work that you're doing and questions I have.
Yeah. So my story is really a lifelong unfolding. I won't go into all the, milestones year by year, but essentially I've felt like I've lived two versions of myself through most of my life. I had an aspect of myself that was quite spiritual, but I kept that on the shelf and really focused in on my high achiever self. The part of me who grew up in small town southern West Virginia, who thought like, oh, the only way that I'm going to get out here, out of this space and out of poverty, essentially, is if I, really become a high achiever, focus on my grades, focus on my education, and get a really great career. And I was so blessed because I experienced a lot of success really early. So by the age of 23, 24, I had the hot husband. So I was married with a fabulous miracle baby, and I achieved a lot of success in the direct sales space. And so here I was, 24. I had graduated from college, and I had everything that they tell you you are supposed to seek. And that when you have those things, then you'll finally be happy, then you'll finally be free. And I got there, and it wasn't that I hated my life. Actually, everything was good. I enjoyed the people that I worked with. My marriage was good, but I just felt like I was not walking in my calling, like I was not filling my highest potential. And I was like, this can't be it. This is it. So that led me to go on a much deeper journey. I started questioning, why are we really here? Like, we can't just be here to work and pay bills and that's it. And here I am, 24, having already achieved what everybody told me was the goal. And so that led to my first initiation. All in all, I spent 5 years in initiation, and that was through um, African mystery schools or spiritual initiation processes. And then on the other side of that, I was initiated as to become what's called a Sangoma, or they would call a Sanusi, meaning that I'm a shaman, also a seer, oracle, etc.
Mm.
And so I completed those initiations in 2018 and came back from South Africa specifically and kind of put my shingle out and started working with people. And it's just been a process of really being guided to the next step and the next step and the next step. And that has led me to create a life that I could not have put on a vision board, that I
Mm.
would not have even thought to dream up or think was possible. And essentially the path or the life that I live is what I teach others how to
Yeah.
do, how to live a spiritually aligned life where you're guided by your intuition and that you are constantly tapping into more of your potential and really living that calling out, which ultimately manifests as just a vision made real that is beyond your imagination, that is beyond what you could even manifest. We're really kind of talking about the land of miracles
Mhm.
becoming more the norm in your life, as well as really being grounded in fulfillment on the journey, not just at the destination.
Mm. So good. Yeah. I was listening to one of your podcasts and you were going to be a doctor, right? And then
Yep.
you ended up a different route. Yeah. And you were actually at Target for a little while and you were carrying shame. I'm just sharing. It's on your podcast, right?
Yeah.
So I just loved all of it because a lot of what you were saying, like I said earlier in your podcast, resonated so much with me around like some of the things I'm speaking about is like the comparison and how when you're really smart, you have these high expectations for yourself. And it's just this, just, oh my gosh, so many things you were saying was like me. You were talking to me, which I've just been on this entrepreneurial journey and I changed my life 2 years ago, relocated across the country, and I've been healing, healing, healing. But anyway, back to, so you are teaching like a couple things that you speak about. You said being smart could be blocking your abundance. So you teach abundance and you also have a program like doing less and receiving more. Tell us how important it is to get quiet and to slow down and not be in this autopilot place in order.
Yeah. One of the things that I don't think a lot of us realize is that we're not really designed to live as outwardly focused as most of us are living. If you think about it, from the time that we open our eyes until the time that we close them, there is something outside of us that could be getting our attention, that we could be focused on. And that leaves very little space for introspection, for for processing, for actually gaining clarity and moving through emotions. And so most of us are constantly, because we're in that pattern anyway, we end up seeking something outside of us constantly to give us the answer,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so one of the things that I think is really important and that I work with a lot of my clients on is really structuring your life to have spaciousness as the normal, but also working through the limiting beliefs and the stories and even the identity at the core of being someone who sees their value in constant productivity, in always being busy, and you will know that this is you if you have a minute to do nothing and you feel guilt or shame about the fact that you are doing nothing, or really struggle with allowing yourself to just be with yourself.
Yeah.
That is something that is more unique to high achievers, leaders, etc. And it's one of the biggest ways that, the problem with being a high achiever is you get rewarded for that. The world rewards you for constant doing, but it is a form of limitation because we can only tap into our intuition, our creativity, our innovation, which is what is going to help us to transcend our current reality and actually be able to do more. That comes from stillness, that comes from space, that comes from quietness.
Mm.
And if you can't get comfortable with that, then you stay productive, but you're staying productive in service to a status quo that might not have anything to do with who you truly are or what you truly desire.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, so good. Mm. I have so many guests on the show that are usually my age, that are much older than you, I assume, that we're checking all the boxes, and then that society says will bring happiness, the college and the husband and all these things. And then they find themselves unfulfilled. And you discovered that much earlier, it seems, which is really interesting. And was your husband supportive? Well, he must have been supportive getting you went on this shaman journey and all that, which I actually looked into becoming a shaman too recently, not that long ago. And I found this one school, and I didn't end up going that route, but because I'm very fascinated with this, being that I grew up without religion and without any real foundation and got in a lot of trouble. And like I always tell my story, it's out there. I overcame so much, and I'm just waiting I'm waiting to really do what I'm here to do. You know what I mean? And that's why everything you were saying resonated, because it was like comparing, and, I can't compare myself to someone's 20, 5 years ahead of me, or 20 steps ahead of me, and all of these things, and like trying and failing and trying and failing, like, which you said on the entrepreneurial journey is what you do. You fail over and over and you get back up. And but yeah, the inadequacy and the shame, all that stuff, it kind of resonates. I sound kind of like disempowering right now, or saying disempowering things, but it's just, I'm very authentic. It's just truth. It's truth. And I was in real estate for years, and I fell into the career, and it's just not my passion. And I want to anyway, but I do coach my clients on slowing down and prioritizing themselves and all these things. And I do get excited when when I have space, when I have nothing on the calendar. I love, it's really fun. I'm like, yay, I have all this time. I can do whatever, right? Read my books, rest, take a bath, go for a walk, be free, right? But yeah, because I think in today's world with this technology and all this stuff, I think our energy is drained even more. Like people don't have the energy for anything, it seems like, right?
Yeah,
Especially
and
like kids and all these things.
yeah, I mean, that's our system is really set up to harvest our energy. Even the way that I was talking with some clients around just the way that the algorithms are structured on social media, right? Just as an example, um, the another example is the 9 to 5. If you think about what the roots of the plans for the creation of these things, none of these systems and structures were created with the goal of how can we help humanity be at their best? How can we help individuals create the life that they desire and, live in their fullest potential? They weren't created with that intention. And so something like the algorithm on social media is structured to take as much from you energetically as it can by getting you to constantly be producing. And also it's structured to even punish you for taking too much of a break or taking too much space for yourself, right? It has an expectation that you should be quote unquote on all the time. And even our, you know, 9 to 5, the idea of a 9 to 5 was not structured in the best interest of the human being. We have that structure that came out of the manufacturing um, time where it was like, okay, how can we get the most productivity out of people on an assembly line, right? To get the most products out there.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to, if we want on an individual level for our life to really have meaning, for our life to feel as good as it looks on the outside, then we have to go first. We have to be the one who says, you know what? These are my circumstances. This is the reality that I live in. And no one individual is responsible for changing the world. But we do change the world when we start to prioritize ourselves first and we start within, and within the limitations of the reality that we find ourselves, the 9 to 5 job or the algorithm, etc. We have to figure out how can we work with this aspect of reality while still honoring self. But you can't do that if you don't know yourself. And most, like, the truth is, whether you are, 24, 25 like I was, 30, 40, 50, it doesn't really matter. We aren't taught how to know ourselves.
Right.
We are taught how to fit in a box,
Yes.
right? So if you are feeling this disconnection, it's because you are not living a life that is true to you. So it requires a journey of self-exploration, and it can be incredible, but also it presents a lot of challenges. You brought up that my husband must have supported me. He did eventually. He did eventually support me. But at first, it's very jarring when you're in a relationship with someone, or you have family, or you have friends who you've been one way your entire life. Like for my entire life, I was like, I actually didn't plan to go to med school, but my entire intention was like, you know, just the top of the education pyramid, because I do love learning. That is something that is core to who I am. But here I was, my family and my husband and everyone had the the intention or the thought that I was going to go to med school and that I was, going to do all of these things. And then here I am saying, no, actually, I'm not going to go to med school. I'm going to work at Target. And I'm going to do this spiritual initiation, which had no end goal, by the way. When you're guided to that kind of initiation process, and I facilitate in a similar way, in that you don't know what the goal is. You don't know, you can't know what the goal is because you're being guided by a force that only gives you one step or 2 steps ahead. And who you're here to be hasn't been before. So it's usually not something that you can just plan from A to Z. So at first, my husband wasn't, he had a little bit of leeway, but he didn't understand and he didn't fully get how I was transforming because I was questioning everything, like questioning everything about marriage, about family, about religion and spirituality and myself, most of all. But eventually we got to a point where I really did think that we were not going to make it, that I thought that our marriage was not going to last. It was about 2 years that were really, really rough. And we got to the point where I, number one, learned that I needed to stop trying to force him to be who I thought he needed to be in order to support me. That was the first mistake I was making. The second mistake that I was making was I was essentially trying to force him to go along this journey. But instead, when I finally told him, look, you actually don't need to support me in the way that I think you do. You just need to not stand in my way. And I'm going to just show you the value of this process by who I become and how I evolve. And over time, that has spoken volumes to everyone in my life. And it is my belief that in spirituality, it is very common for you to feel a greater disconnection sometimes from people. But if you go about it properly, it should create greater and deeper levels of connection, because when you start to really understand yourself, you also develop greater understanding of them and greater acceptance of them. This is probably, now I'm off on a tangent, but that is one of the things I want to bring up, because so many spiritualists that I see, people that go on a spiritual journey, um, end up in like total isolation. And from a shamanic perspective, we heal in community, we heal in relationship. So we
Mm.
might have periods of time where we, may separate ourselves just to learn more about ourselves, but ultimately we should be coming into greater levels of connection.
Mm.
And if not, then there's something else not quite right with that, with an asterisk. If you're with abusive people, that's a separate thing.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I just realized recently I've been going through some things, some personal things, and the sisterhood, like I have evolved so much. Like I'm not who I was 2 weeks ago, yesterday, or a year, 2 years, 5 years. But the sisterhood, like the communities of women that I'm in, is the most like gigantic gift. I realize that the sisterhood that I have, the women, the powerful souls in my life that are women, usually they're all over the world. That from these communities, spiritual communities I'm in, are literally what I need. It's completely it's just like amazing because we lift each other and we're all one anyway, if you believe that, which you probably do.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
You're me and I'm you. Like I was watching your videos going, oh my God, I love her and she's beautiful. And then I'm like, oh wait, that's a reflection. I'm seeing her. It's probably what I'm seeing in myself, right?
Yep.
Um, and so let's see, there's so much I can talk to you about. You said in one of your videos, everything in this reality is a result of a non-physical reality. So would you like to touch on that? Because yeah, the growth and all that. And I think the other thing is I study the Course in Miracles and I realize so many things that like it's really very simple, but it's difficult for some reason. Like this whole video game of life that we're in, this illusion, this life, the rules, the spiritual universal laws are pretty simple, but yet they're not easy. So I think it's because of the programs, the limiting beliefs, and the way we are set up from 0 to 7 when we're sponges and recorders and taking on all these identities and beliefs. Like, I just want to erase the software in the so it's interesting anyway. So everything in our reality is a result of our non-physical reality. So
Yeah. So one of the things that when I really got this, even now, is extremely insightful for any of the perceived obstacles that I'm experiencing. Because if we understand, most of us live our lives thinking that the external things that we are seeing are here in this moment. But actually, they originate in the non-physical or in the spiritual realm first. There's nothing in this realm that exists here first. Everything starts in the non-physical. And when I mean that, what I mean is it could be a thought form first, it could be an emotion first, it could be a concept first, right? Even like when I say concept, I even think of like conception of a child, right? We think the conception of a child happens when the, when the egg and the sperm meet. We think that's when a child is conceived, becomes a concept. But actually, who's to say that it isn't when the mother and the father meet, or when their mother and fathers met, and on and on and on? We don't actually know where that actually began, but it didn't start when the two came together. It actually started before that.
Mm.
So if you look at the obstacles that you are experiencing in your life, or the challenges that you're experiencing in your life, everything has a root in something spiritual first, meaning when I'm saying spiritual, something non-physical first.
Mm.
So, as a shaman, one of the things that we are trained to do and is part of our gifting is to understand those mysteries, those non-physical, spiritual mysteries, the energetic patterns or the energetic codes that then create a certain experience in reality. And when you understand those mysteries, which is essentially what all of my work is centered around, if you understand those mysteries as the root cause of everything,
Root cause.
then if you deal with the root cause of something, you impact not just one symptom, but you can impact and change things holistically, right? So, for example, if I am having, and let's use a body example, if I am having multiple symptoms in my body, a lot of our medical system is kind of trained to deal with the symptoms. Okay, you're going to take this prescription for that symptom, and you're going to go see this specialist for that symptom. And then before you know it, you are on an entire spread, an entire cocktail of prescriptions. And no, I'm not saying go off your prescriptions. However, if at the core of those is that maybe on a genetic level, you are not designed to be eating a certain thing, and you keep consuming that thing and it just produces multiple symptoms in the body. Well, wouldn't you rather address the root cause, that one thing, and then all of those symptoms start to resolve themselves? So one of the reasons I've been able to create the most incredible results with clients is because when you get to the root cause of a thing, it starts affecting all of these different areas of your life where that pattern was manifesting itself. So in a person, let's say that this is a very common one for my women, especially if you are, Gen X, boomers, some millennials, but just in general, women really struggle with people pleasing as a pattern, where because of the way that we were brought up, even if you weren't religious, we are kind of taught that a woman's purpose is to serve everyone else. She
Right.
exists in relation to everyone else. She's someone's mother, she's someone's daughter, she's someone's wife. And many of us weren't brought up with an identity outside of how we relate to someone else. And so that causes us at our core to constantly be in this people pleasing pattern Okay.
uh,
So if
women.
you have this pattern of people pleasing, where essentially what's happening when you are constantly people pleasing is that you're self abandoning often. You're denying what it is that is truly for you, truly aligned for you, truly what you desire for someone else. And over time, this builds lots of issues, resentment. It feels like you can't be supported. It feels like you're not fully accepted for who you are. You constantly have to be doing something in order to get the acceptance. I mean, there's so many ways this shows up. And often, what will happen is that it might show up in one area of your life that is a focus, right? If you're an entrepreneur, maybe it's showing up in um, clients not valuing the work that you're doing together. And that comes as a result of you constantly just giving them everything so they value nothing, right? And so it might manifest in that way. And by uncovering what that pattern is and you start to shift your self-concept that actually no, I am safe when I say no. And actually, it's in everyone's highest interest for me to say no. And here's how, here's all the evidence of everything amazing that happens when I start saying no. What you will realize is that not only starts to shift that symptom of your clients not valuing you, but it starts to shift things with your team. It starts to shift your relationship with how you create content. It starts to change how you navigate your parents. It
Mm.
starts to shift all of these different things that weren't even necessarily the obstacle that was showing up, and that ultimately
Frees you. It's freeing.
it is free. It's true freedom, right? We think of freedom as like, oh, when I have the money to do the thing that I want to do, then I will be free. But then you get money and you realize, wait, actually, if I had time, that would make me free. But then you get the time and you're like, wait, why am I still not, why do I still not feel free? It's because freedom at its core is about the freedom to be your aligned true self. And in order to do that, you have to peel back the layers and let go of all these versions of self that are not you.
Hmm. Yes. I loved all
Yeah.
of that so much. How do you help somebody find out and get on their, I mean, I've been on the path, but like getting to know who they are and stand in their power.
Yeah. Well, there's a few ways. Number one, awareness, like simple, just getting aware of what are the things that we're doing? What are the behaviors? What are those patterns? Where do we keep doing the same thing? And then understanding where that's coming from and the effect that that's having on our life. That by itself starts to change you. We actually don't have to do a whole lot, but if you simply just bring light to the darkness, meaning bring awareness to something that you were previously unaware of about yourself, and you begin to understand yourself, then you start to have greater levels of acceptance of yourself and also greater power in changing those things because you can't change what you don't see,
Right.
right?
Absolutely.
So that's one. I also like to use various methods. Like I think human design and gene keys, astrology can also be really helpful for you to start to understand more of who you are and who you're here to be. But the third piece is my own process. It's essentially a paradigm called euphoric evolution. And essentially it's a process where I take someone through identifying what the obstacle really is, what the pattern is in that, start to explore all of these um, more aligned pathways, more aligned opportunities, and then start to take action, because we love to stay in our mind about what we think we should do, what we think we have to do. But it's often not until we actually take the action and we experiment with things in our life and then take some introspective time to go, oh, this this actually didn't feel aligned. Let me see how I need to adjust. And my perspective is that we are in an earth school. We are in a process of evolution on this plane. And when we allow ourselves to be in that process, the earth, the universe itself, continues to bring us opportunities to get into alignment again and again and again and again.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. I want to ask you about like dark energies because you're
Okay.
a shaman. Like, can you help me understand that? Like, is it, and is some of these core root causes, are these things that, are, ancestors and, is this something that like the coding that's like been going on and on and on? I'm trying to understand because every day there's some other modality and offer and things out there, coaches and different people, and you're like, you got to listen to that intuition and what is for me and what isn't for me. And, if you're doing everything, it's just hard to figure out what do I need. I'm doing EFT right now a little bit, and that's been a game changer, emotional freedom technique. I have a lot of trauma. I'm just speaking about myself, but a lot of people listening also have trauma because we all have experienced some form. Um, and a lot of people listening are entrepreneurs and they are on the journey and trying to find their way and get their abundance and all the things serve. And yeah, so I'm just curious about dark energies and like this coding you mentioned earlier. Is this something we can, I know you have your program, the euphoric evolution. I love what you're doing, so tell us what you suggest, or tell me about the dark energies. Like, could somebody out there be like saying, I wish this on her? And is that a thing or?
That is so. Is that a thing? Yes, and asterisks, right? So it's simple, but again, like you were saying, not necessarily easy. So we'll call this psychic attack or dark work, right? Essentially, at the core of that, what's happening is that this universe, um, like I said, is a school for growth and evolution. And it also exists in a harmony, a certain balance. So if someone is, let's say, cursing you or psychically attacking you, etc., in order for you to really feel the full effect of that, you would have to be on some level an energetic match to receive that. So I will share a personal example. Like when my husband and I were having this difficulty as I was finding my way spiritually, right? I already had a certain belief around who I thought he needed to be in order to be my partner, right? Oh, we need to both be spiritual and in the same way, right? Which honestly just doesn't even make sense at this point. I'm like, that doesn't even make sense. But that's what I thought, right? And so we can think about this from a spiritual level and say, okay, well, um, there's the possibility of, attracting dark energies or dark entities and yada, yada, yada. But also we can think about this as just like confirmation bias, right? Where if I am already thinking that, I am much more likely to take in information or seek out information that continues to affirm that. making it more likely, expanding and feeding that darkness, right? So this is how trauma also can work in our beings. It's that we have experienced something as our, it's been imprinted or encoded in us, whether through our own reality or something inherited, right? Epigenetics is coming and finally affirming in science what our ancestors have known for tens of thousands of years, that our experiences get passed down through DNA. And from a spiritual level, time doesn't exist. So something that happened to our, 3 times great grandmother could be a pattern that we are feeling and experiencing right now, right? The good news is that we don't have to understand why it happened. We don't have to, like, there's certain techniques and tools like past life regression, right? Which essentially is a form of hypnosis that takes you into one of your past lives. Um, we actually don't need to know that. What we can do is look at in this life, right? Because everything is, like I've said before, everything is non-physical or spiritual first before it comes into this reality. So if you start to see certain patterns and you become aware of certain patterns showing up in your reality, that's all you need to know in order to shift it, in order to change it. If you want to do those tools, that's helpful. But by no means is it necessary to do that. So this harmony that we've got to come to grips with in this life is to understand that this realm will never be, quote unquote, all light. It is supposed to have, quote unquote, darkness. And a way of being or a pattern that served you in one season of your life could become a darkness in another season of your life. It
Mm-hmm.
could be something limiting. Like I'll use a just, we don't even have to get super spiritual on this. My great grandmother um survived the Great Depression, right? Many of us have family who survived the Great Depression, and whether,
Yeah.
yeah, so depending on where they were in the world, um, or in the US, what level of society, the work that they did, etc., the impacts were different, but many people share certain patterns. My great grandmother, out of that experience, um, became extremely frugal.
My dad.
So, yeah, so she was a person, many people have this pattern where because of that experience, the pattern that was born out of it was one of a fear of scarcity, of not having. So she would, this is like a silly example, but it was how it manifested in one way, is that she would always save Christmas paper. So Christmas paper, the Christmas bags, the bows, etc., always had to be saved and reused every single year. And she was kind of frantic about it to a certain degree.
Right.
And we would have Christmas gifts that would be in packages that came from 20 years, 30 years
Yeah.
before, right? And this isn't a bad thing, actually. This is quite a sustainable thing. However, if you continue that pattern, like I now look, my mom has that pattern where now it, it has become magnified to the point where it's so severe that she struggles to let go of anything that's no longer serving her, out of fear that she won't have it
Yeah.
again, have the resources to have it again. Well, think about how that would manifest in your business, right? You would be afraid to let go of something that might even be serving you to a certain degree, like an offer or a certain kind of clientele or a certain way of marketing. Even if it's not serving you anymore, you're clinging on to it because of the fear that the next thing won't work or that the next thing that you create won't be as profitable and so on and so forth. So that's just one simple example of how the Great Depression
Yeah. Oh, it
can
did a
still be
number.
affecting us.
Yes, it did a number. My dad would, turn off the lights, turn off the, shut the water. I mean, somebody handed him money at the grocery store thinking he was homeless, and he had a lot of money. He just didn't dress. He didn't take care of himself. A lot of things, but he stood in line for food or whatever as a boy, I think. And yes, so that affected him, affected me, affected the family. And I still have that a little bit, the scarcity. Um, and I was listening to a podcast author show, and she said, when you are hanging on to something, that's scarcity in the future. That's lack in the future. Like if you are holding on to something that you don't need because you might need it, that is causing lack in the future. And I was like, oh my gosh, that stuck in my head.
Yeah. And if I always think about these patterns on a micro level, meaning how it can impact an individual, but then I also see things in the macro as well. And one of the reasons why our culture, meaning Western society, whether you're in the US, Canada, Europe, Australia, like we have structured our societies from scarcity. And that mentality, even if you have money, having money doesn't fix the scarcity pattern.
Right.
And then you end up creating massive amounts of inequality, causing damage to our environment. Like I can point this to basically anything like
Right.
fashion industry, food industry, like so much of it is created from scarcity.
Yeah.
And that's a whole other conversation that
Yeah.
I could talk about. But
Yeah.
it ultimately is very destructive. It works for a little while until it doesn't work. And
Right.
then it becomes destructive.
Yeah. So when somebody has that scarcity mindset and they work, it's like you don't brush your teeth once and you're good for a week. You don't work out once and you're fit. That's what I always say. Like I have worked on my money mindset and I have done the work and then I'm abundant and but then it comes back. That default comes back sometimes. So
Yeah.
it's interesting.
So what you want to pay attention to is it actually coming back or are you reaching a new level of mastery? So
Mm,
here's how you can think about this is that we evolve in a spiral way. You can imagine this like you are on level 1 and you master level 1 of scarcity, and then you ascend to level 2, like in a video game, right? Well, level 2, that same problem might show up, but now you're actually experiencing it from a slightly different angle. And so you master that level, and then you go up another level. What you want to pay attention to, though, is if you keep repeating it the exact same way, right? Like you keep having the same experience, then there is another, the pattern hasn't been mastered at that level, right? So if you think about it like, we'll just use money, right? You need to learn how to manage $1,000, right? Before you're ready to manage $10,000, before you're ready to manage 100,000, before you're ready to manage 100 million, and on and on and on. And what's funny about that is people won't believe me when I say this, but the truth is that energetically, those are actually like, they're actually the same if you think about it. Um, just with more zeros,
right.
right? If you have a net worth of 100 million, right? You're just buying a house with more zeros on it, right? Versus the house that you were buying with, $100,000 net worth. It's
Yeah.
just more zeros. But we have the perception um, that it's so much more
Mm-hmm.
out of you to be able to do that, when really that is just perception. Money's interesting, and I enjoy talking about it just because so much of it is perception, and we have it's so taboo, and it has like so much heightened emotion
Yeah.
around it. So that makes it kind of fun for me to talk about. I love to talk about those sorts of things. Like
Yeah, I
I
love to
talk
help.
about money, sex, and death. Those are my things that I talk
Well, I want
about.
to. So that is the end of part one with Makhosi. I hope you enjoyed the episode and stay tuned for part two. If you enjoyed this episode, please share with someone who may benefit and leave a review. It would mean so much to me to grow this audience and help as many people as possible. Have a wonderful day, and thank you for listening. As always, take care.